part 2 of the E-Spot. We have Taylor Sharp, who resides here in Durham, North Carolina, where he runs Blue Cup Productions and is currently producing and developing a diverse slate of both documentary and narrative works. Who didn't pay the electricity bill?
Santa upset with somebody.
It's on the roof. He's taking off right now.
He just took off the roof.
That's what it is.
Nice.
He was draining our resources. He studied the philosophy and business of sports at Moorhead Kane Scholar at UNC Chapel Hill, and is the producer and co-director of Hoops Africa, Ubuntu Matters. So, Taylor Sharp, thank you so much for coming in today. I'm so proud to have you here. Your documentary looks amazing, and you have so many great people in it. How did you make the transition from volunteering for Hoops for Hope in Zimbabwe to becoming a producer and starting your own production company?
Well, first of all, let me say, following Santa, that's a tough act to follow.
Sorry, I set you up.
But he really got us warmed up.
No kidding.
And with the warm-up act.
Exactly. But yeah, I went to UNC. I graduated in 2016. Was able to be a part of the Moorhead Kane Scholarship, which allowed me some summer experiences, and got to spend a full 2 months living and volunteering in Zimbabwe with this basketball nonprofit, Hoops for Hope. And I really just fell in love on the courts with the work they do, the impact they make in the lives of the kids they work with. So a couple years later, after working in sports a couple more summers, I had this idea to make this documentary. So my partner on the film, Dan Hedges, and I went back to Zimbabwe to make this film kind of alongside the NBA.
Wow.
That's really interesting hearing this. I think we had a conversation with you in the previous years, but now they have NBA Africa. Did this tie into that at all? This play a role in really trying to talk about how NBA could be more prevalent in Africa.
Part of NBA Cares?
Yes, yeah, right.
Yeah, I think it all runs together. I mean, this film, it's funny because this was a collection of stories that highlight kind of the past, present, and future of the game. But even since we released this film a couple years ago, so much has happened.
Yes.
They've announced the Basketball Africa League. Yes. They'll have a league there. They've announced the NBA Academy system before that. So they have a Premier Academy in Senegal. So it's been interesting to see, the NBA and nonprofits like Hoops for Hope continue to grow the game, both big business and also at a grassroots community level doing some great social impact work.
Exactly.
Great. And we're here with Taylor Sharp, who is the co-director and producer of Hoops of Africa, Ubuntu Matters. And I have a question for you. So tell us how you were able to get such amazing talent involved, from NBA player Akeem Olajuwon of the Houston Rockets and so many more other NBA players in your film.
Yeah, good question.
Well, I like to say that all of that kind of was an Ubuntu effort. And for anyone listening, Ubuntu is this common bond of humanity. It's about empathy. It's about togetherness. I am because we are. So I think the ethos of the project all centered around this philosophy of Ubuntu. And so these NBA players, when I was approaching them, as a 20-year-old kid doing my first film, honestly, because I was still a student when we started this documentary, I think people saw the power of Ubuntu and wanted to be a part of it. So it was a lot of me knocking on doors and trying to get in touch with people. And it took about a year and a half for me to get Hakeem Olajuwon finally involved. But then he narrates it. So we have some of the best NBA players and Hall of Famers, the commissioner, in the film. So we really got a lot of talent to represent themselves and to be able to discuss the celebration and the growth of the game in Africa.
That's amazing. So what encouraged you to even do this film? What stood out to you enough that you were like, this needs to be a film, people need to know what's going on here, Hoops for Africa is doing so much, changing lives. What was it that inside of you that was like, this needs to be a documentary, people need to know what's going on?
Well, I'll start just with where my heart is, and that was in Zimbabwe with the people I worked with. A common story I tell about Ubuntu when people want to ask about it. What's an example of some Ubuntu? I remember there in the communities they worked in, they had done a shoe drive, and they'd given out some shoes, and there was this girl who had her first pair of Nikes, and she was so excited, as we all were. Speaking of Santa, when you get your first real big gift, and super excited about it. And I saw her playing the next day, and she had on high sock on her left side and that Nike shoe, and then she was barefoot on her right foot. And I said, what happened? 2 minutes later, a timeout, one of her teammates comes in, high red sock on her right leg, Nike shoe on her right foot, and barefoot on the left. And I was thinking, that's just Ubuntu lived out right there. That's just one little example. So I was really struck by the work of Hoops for Hope in Zimbabwe. And then when I came back, I worked at a sports agency in D.C. that represented a lot of NBA players. And then I got the chance to work at the NBA league office in New York. So I was getting more ingrained into the basketball world. And that's when the NBA announced the Africa game in 2015. And that was the first time a U.S. professional sports league held a game on African
I remember
soil.
that game, yes.
Yes, it was this historic moment in sports, and particularly for basketball on the continent of Africa. And Hoops for Hope was going to be there teaching life skills. My host little brother, Watita, he was there as a Basketball Without Borders participant, so as a top prospect. So the film in many ways talks about Watita's journey, this young Zimbabwean with dreams to make it to the U.S., talks about the NBA's Africa game, talks about the Boston Celtics and them rallying around Ubuntu to win the 2008 championship, and honors a lot of the legends who paved the way for the growth that's happening now.
It's amazing. Again, we're here with Taylor Sharp, who is a director, a producer. He owns his own production company. He has a wide variety of experience in nonprofit, entrepreneurial, sports industries, including time spent on Hoops for Hope in Zimbabwe and as a project employee for the NBA that you just mentioned. So what was it like working for the NBA in New York City?
It was great. I mean, that was a summer dream job, come true for a
Especially coming from Chapel Hill.
I was about to
like
say,
basketball is in our blood here.
I grew up in North Carolina. I
Not
went to school at
currently.
UNC. So.
Well, yeah,
I'm not-
Duke
not
fan
sure-
over
yeah, we
here.
got
I'm loving this.
Oh, okay, keep going.
Well, hey, always, even after a few bad losses, basketball is still in our blood.
yeah,
That's
you're right.
true. It's so
Working
fun.
working at the league office was great. Yeah, I met so many great people there. Had so
Like
many
who?
neat
Name drop
opportunities.
here.
Well, hey, I'll name drop the people I met for the film specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, Hakeem Olajuwon, I said, narrates. We've got Chris Paul in there, another North Carolina guy.
Yeah.
We've got Paul Pierce, Brian Scalabrine, Luke Bamute, Luol Deng, a Duke guy for you.
Yeah.
We've got Giannis Antetokounmpo in there long before his MVP.
Oh, really?
See, I was not going to butcher these people.
I know, but you said that
But
pretty
he's
good,
doing
though.
it great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, having worked in Zimbabwe.
Exactly, and even the summer before that at the agency, they represented his brother Thanasis.
Yeah.
So I had to get his pronunciation to spell of that name right.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of great people I was able to meet in my different summers working in basketball, and now post college. This film and other opportunities. I love that. I love the community that is like the basketball world.
That's amazing. So what are since you just mentioned it, what future plans do you have? What new films are you working on? How can we support you?
Well, we mentioned UNC Duke, but I saw a sign for NC Central, so I'll talk about a project related to that.
Oh, wow.
Eagle Pride?
Yeah,
Amplified.
my production partner, Holland Gallagher, who's a Durham guy as well, he had actually started, before we started this company, doing a short documentary series commissioned by the North Carolina Arts Council on Little Brother.
Yeah.
If you all are familiar. And so he did 2 short docs on their debut album, The Listening, and then on Homecoming, they're coming back together to play a show at Hopscotch in Raleigh.
Right, this past summer.
Exactly. So we're actually doing a feeture documentary on them. So we just got back from LA. We were with them on tour.
Okay.
As they're promoting their most recent album. So I love having another.
This dude here is
He
getting
gets
around here.
around.
I can tell.
Like, I tell you, I bring you guys the best.
I know, you
the
sure
best.
do. You getting in it. Yeah.
Good job.
So how can our listeners keep in touch
Yeah.
with you and follow your projects that are coming up?
Yeah, well, my Instagram's tsharp94. You can go find Hoops Africa, hoopsafricafilm.com. We're Hoops Africa on all social media, and bluecupproductions.com. You'll be able to see a little bit more about Hoops Africa, a little bit more about the Little Brother stuff, and some of the other projects we're working on as well.
Yeah, and since it's that time of the year about giving to others, I want to just real quickly, if you could explain your non-for-profit Casting for Hope.
Would love to, yeah. Long before all of this, really long before the sports or storytelling projects came to be for me, was this nonprofit Casting for Hope. So back when I was in high school, I lost my mom to ovarian cancer. This time,
so
9
sorry.
years ago. And out of that came Casting for Hope, which started off as a fly fishing benefit tournament to raise money for a cancer clinic in Asheville, and then has grown so much since then. So now we're a nonprofit that financially and emotionally assists women and families with gynecological cancers all throughout the 100 counties in North Carolina. So whether it's
That's
amazing. paying bills, and hospital debt and utility bills and such for families. That's one thing we do, but we also take women and their caregivers out on fly fishing retreats in the mountains of North Carolina for a weekend away from the clinical
nice.
setting. So yeah, both, Casting for Hope, as the year ends, we're always doing a year-end campaign to raise money for our work. And
that's unbelievable. That's great, man.
So great. Again, we're here with Taylor Sharp. Thank you so much for coming in today. And again, can you tell people your social media so they can find you? Just want to make sure that they know where to find where your next projects are coming from, especially with Big Brother. That's exciting.
Yeah, the Little Brother Beast is going to be great.
Sorry.
You can find out more about that at bluecupproductions.com on our website. You can follow me personally, T-Sharp94, and definitely go check out Hoops Africa as well.
Keep up the good work, my friend.
We'll do.
That's
Job well done, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
Really proud of you.